do you ever feel like no matter what goals you set for yourself and new things that you try, do you ever feel that you can never really accomplish or succeed in the thing? Like you always want to try new things, and it starts out great, but then you have all this motivation, and then later on, a couple weeks down the line, you fall off the horse and you tend to lose all of that momentum you got, and you get really discouraged, and you feel like you can never really finish anything. I know I have for sure a lot that I want to start new things, but actually this past weekend I met with my sister, and we had a discussion about that similar thing, how we both have problems with that. For her, she tends to over the last few years, I've noticed that she tends to wants us to try to start new things. Like her biggest issue is that she wants to get better at being better with time management and being productive, and hitting her goals, and whether it's like finance or work or fitness or nutrition or dance wise. So she has all these goals, and she always tells me about them every time I visit and chat with her, but it seems like a month later, 2 months later, or 3 months later, halfway into the year, it seems like those goals have gone away, and she's probably fallen off or hasn't achieved those goals, and it sucks. It's very demoralizing. And after talking with her this past weekend, I was kind of digging into it a little bit more as to what the issue is. And so recently she started doing intermittent fasting and a keto diet, right, which is high fat, very low carb, and like medium protein. And intermittent fasting, which is what I do, which is eating within certain time frames, within certain windows. And so she decided, I think I told her about my journey a few months back, and then she said after thinking about it and doing her own research, she figured out that she wanted to go and try it and combine it with keto, which is awesome, which is cool. And but one thing that struck me, which was like, usually when you do fasting, you build up to it. You kind of start with the typical normal fasting period is about 16 hours, and then you eat for about 8 hours within the day. Usually people will advise you to start small, like try skipping a meal, or try just doing a 12-hour fast and then work your way up to 14 to 16, and then so on and so forth. And then if you can do more, then that's great. What always struck me is that she said, I'm just going to start off with an 18-6, which is kind of difficult. And not only that, but she wants to do it at 4 a.m. until 10 a.m., which is also crazy because she doesn't wake up that early. And so she says that she wants to do it because it'll help her wake up. So it's kind of like it forces her to wake up, because if she doesn't wake up on time, then she doesn't get to eat. But then she's been saying that this past week, she's only been doing it for about a week now, that she notices that even though she has that 6-hour feeding period, she doesn't normally even eat more than once. So she only has one meal and then she's full. So she's really doing more like a 23-1. So 23-hour fast, 1 hour eating, which I think is crazy. But I've noticed this, like I know my sister really well, that the reason why she kind of goes all in and goes really hard on things is because that's kind of like her mindset, is that she tends to have high standards for herself. Like, okay, if this is the normal, then I'm going to go above and beyond and just destroy it and then course correct from there. She's like, okay, well, if I can't sustain this, I'll just kind of reallocate or like readjust. But I'm like, well, that's kind of crazy, because doing that much, like I could never do that. Like I had to start off small and do 12-hour fasts and then work my way up from there. But she has this history of doing that, of I'm gonna just go cold turkey and just do this thing. Like she's gonna, work for 6 days a week, driving for Uber, and work for 14 hours a day and then just sleep and then go back to it, which is cool and it's admirable. But the problem that I've seen is that I feel like she has this mindset where she has to go hard, like she has to be a champion level when she starts. And it makes sense because she's been a part of a championship, a very world-class dance team where they have high standards, so she's used to putting herself through the ringer. But the problem with that is when you go too hard and you don't give yourself grace, when you inevitably don't hit those goals, you tend to, when you're hard on yourself, you tend to see yourself as a failure, and you add up those failures over time, and it adds up, and it's very demoralizing to be like, man, I've been doing all these things and I can't seem to succeed at any of them. And you start to develop that mindset and internal script, which is a bad thing. My advice to her, and my advice to people usually, is when you have these big lofty goals, that's great, but I would always advise to start with small goals. Even with myself, I always ask myself, what are the small wins, the small check boxes that I can check off and say, okay, I did that, and I can get the momentum from those small wins in order to build up to the bigger ones. Because if I start building the habit of, hey, even though I do a crappy job, even though this wasn't my best, I still did it and I still achieved it and I got the reps, doing the bad reps. And I told her the main takeaway is that she has this mentality of a champion, of a winner, of a master, when in reality, when you're trying new things, you should really adopt the mindset of a beginner, of a student, of a learner. And that's what I'm trying to do with some of the projects that I have upcoming, is that I want to just start as a beginner and just do the reps and then learn as I go and get better as I go, and not try to hold myself to such high standards, that knowing that I will eventually get there. And so that's the thought of the day, is that when you want to achieve a goal, a big lofty goal, and you want to change a huge part of your life, always start small. Start small, give yourself some grace, knowing that you may or may not achieve it, but set yourself up for success by trying to achieve those smaller goals, and set the bar low and then slowly raise the bar up, so you don't set yourself up for failure. And so the more you can do that, I believe that the more you can achieve those bigger goals over time with consistency and practice.